Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, Ethiopia's army said that the country's been forced into an unexpected and aimless war with its powerful Tigray region. Also, the messy follow-up to this week's US presidential election hasn't gone unnoticed outside of the country. Some African observers see worrying parallels between the tactics employed by President Donald Trump and chaotic leadership they've experienced on the African continent. And properties have been flooded and communities displaced around Lake Naivasha in Kenya's Rift Valley. Waters have historically been higher, but this year levels topped any seen since 1932. But first, fighting between Ethiopia's military and the heavily armed Tigray region has escalated since Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed sent federal troops into the northern region on Wednesday. It said that it's been bombed by fighter jets, and its president has warned that they will defend themselves. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed ordered the operations in response to an alleged deadly attack by the Tigrayan People's Liberation Front on a military base. The government said that it had no choice but to respond.
ሀገራችን ያላሰበችው ጦርነት ውስጥ ገብታለች። ይሄ ጦርነት በጣም አሳፋሪ ጦርነት ነው። ዓላማ የሌለው ነው። የትግራይ ህዝብም የትግራይ ወጣትም የትግራይ የጸጥታ ኃይልም ለዚህ ዓላማ የሌለው ጦርነት ህይወቱን አሳልፎ መስጠት የለበትም። ኢትዮጵያ ሀገሩ ነች።
Well, the incidents sparked fears of civil war in a country that's been rife with ethnic stress since Abiy Ahmed took power in 2018. A 6-month state of emergency has been imposed on the Tigray region. Martin Plaut is a specialist on affairs in the region. He joins us now. Martin, there have been tensions between the Tigray region and Abiy since he took office. So what's prompted this risky and extreme response from the government now?
Well, I think the issue that really sparked it off was the 9th of September election, which the Tigray region held, despite being told by the federal authorities that they should not hold them. The government in Tigray won 98% of the vote. People who were there, who were independent, said, well, it was a bit high, but they certainly got a substantial amount of the vote. Now, if you hold an election against the express orders of the federal authorities, you're almost declaring independence.
Now, there are concerns that this could be a threat to the region. Why would an internal conflict risk stability beyond Ethiopia's borders?
Well, first of all, the fighting is taking place in mostly on the region right next to Sudan, and that could draw Sudanese people into it. The Amhara region, which is just south of Tigray, part of Ethiopia, could also be involved. And there are also reports of Eritrean troops being mobilized to the north of Tigray, Eritrea being an independent country, of course, and that they could become involved. So it really does have the possibility, and I'm not trying to predict, but it had the possibility of becoming a regional conflict.
Is there any likelihood that either side might back down?
I think that is very unlikely. I mean, we're hearing reports which are not yet confirmed that actually Prime Minister Abiy on Wednesday sent 2 planes, helicopters and an Antonov, into Tigray to try and assassinate the 12 leading members of the Tigray Regional Authority. They took over a hotel, but unfortunately, from their point of view, the Tigray leadership were not in the hotel at the time. At the same time, blood is being rushed up to the front line from Addis Ababa. The blood banks in the capital of Ethiopia are said to be being depleted. So it is clearly a really hot war now, and this could drag in the region as well as destabilizing Ethiopia, which has many problems already.
Thanks very much, Martin Plaut, there speaking to us. Now, Tanzania's president was sworn in for a second term on Thursday after a landslide win in last month's election that his critics say was a sham. The inauguration of John Magufuli went ahead in Dodoma, despite opposition calls for a fresh election. He's been accused of having grown increasingly authoritarian during his first term. Mkelwa Shachwayu has more.
President John Magufuli held up a ceremonial shield and spear to signify the beginning of his second five-year term in office, shortly after taking the oath on Thursday morning. The inauguration ceremony took place despite the continued disputes over last week's elections. The opposition have called the polls a sham. They say that the violence, intimidation, and crackdown on the media before and after the polls delegitimizes Magufuli's government. The Electoral Commission say that he won the vote with over 80%. Observers and activists say that this is implausible as opposition strongholds swung to the ruling party by large margins. The opposition also complained of widespread ballot stuffing and accused security forces of using violence against them and their supporters. Several of their leaders were also arrested following the elections after they called for mass protests against the results. We spoke to Zito Kabwe, who's one of the leaders in the opposition, and he says that the next 5 years of Magufuli's government will be no different than the last.
Going to be like the last 5 years or even more. The crackdowns, the narrowing of civic space, the anti-democratic tendencies, lack of accountability through parliament, because parliament is now 99% the ruling party. So super majority.
Kabwe and other leaders have called on donor countries to withdraw support for Magufuli's government until new elections are held under international supervision. The inauguration ceremony was attended by various delegates from the region and beyond. Leaders such as Kenya's Uhuru Kenyatta and South Africa's Cyril Ramaphosa sent messages of congratulations to Magufuli. The opposition say that this is disheartening, especially as some of their leaders remain behind bars. They described last week's elections as a dark day for Democrats, but a playbook for autocrats.
Now, the US has long dominated international affairs. The messy follow-up to this week's presidential election there hasn't gone unnoticed beyond its borders. President Donald Trump has challenged the results of some states that haven't gone his way. His baseless claims of voter fraud have left a bad taste in the mouths of some African observers who see worrying parallels between the current US polls and the chaotic leadership that some have experienced on the continent.
In recent years, there have been several highly disputed presidential elections in Africa. For example, in Kenya in 2008. On the streets of Nairobi, many Kenyans have been watching the 2020 US contest closely. They are not impressed by what they are seeing. Firstly, President Trump falsely claimed he had won. Then he alleged fraud without proving evidence. And now he has filed lawsuits.
Trump declaring himself president in America is a very dangerous trend, especially for us Africa. Because tomorrow we are going to have leaders from all over coming to claim that they have won elections. And America is losing direction as a world leader.
People barricading their shops and their offices, preparing for looting and violence. Something that we normally experience in Africa. Can this happen in a country that has seen democracy for centuries?
In Ivory Coast, there was deadly post-electoral violence 10 years ago, and last week's presidential election here has also been hotly contested. Ivorians are dismayed by what is going on in the US right now.
Ça ressemble, comme on le voit couramment en Afrique, comme on le voit couramment lors des élections présidentielles en Afrique. C'est pas ce qu'on a l'habitude de voir des États-Unis. On a l'habitude de voir un pays qui respecte les droits, qui respecte la Constitution, qui respecte tout ce qui est démocratie, mais aujourd'hui, ce que nous voyons à la télévision, vraiment, on ne sait plus où on va.
Many on the continent feel the situation is highly ironic, as Washington is often quick to admonish African leaders for not respecting democratic norms.
Now, properties have been flooded and communities displaced around Lake Naivasha in Kenya's Rift Valley. The rising waters are in part due to above-average rainfall seen over the past decade. But Urban growth and loss of wetlands have all contributed to extreme flooding. The waters have historically been higher, but this year, levels topped any seen since 1932. Our correspondents report.
Nothing is left of this hotel, covered by water within just a few months. David remembers the days when he used to work here.
Now, this was the swimming pool was just here. There was a small bar there, and the resting places for sitting. And this was a club, the disco.
Since January, some regions saw 4 times more rain than usual. Rivers swelled and the lakes of the Rift Valley overflowed.
We have never seen such a thing. Since we are talking of 30 to 40 years, we have never seen such a thing.
Tens of thousands of people were displaced throughout the region. Few residents remember that the last time water rose this high was in the beginning of the 20th century. According to the Lakeside Defense Association, the government should never have allowed hotels, houses and shops to be built here.
The lake level records have shown us we've been here a number of times. Every time the lake rises, people have to be displaced, and the government has to come in and try to give some humanitarian aid and support. But that is not sustainable.
The Governmental Environment Agency is in charge of finding solutions so that communities won't face similar dangers in the future. The current law is very vague and is due to be replaced.
For lakes, such as Lake Naivasha, you are not allowed to put up any structure or to do any development activity within a distance of 30 meters from the highest recorded water level of the lake.
Some residents are still waiting to be relocated by the government. With the start of the rainy season, many fear a new rise of the lake.
Well, that's it for Eye on Africa for now. Thanks for joining us, and do so again if you can. Take care.